In this video, we're going to talk about a secondary source called the American Law Reports. It's also known as ALR. This is a very large set, and unfortunately here in the library we kept only a very small number of them for teaching purposes, but you can access these online. Now ideally I'd like to tell you a little history of the ALRs, but you're probably not interested in that any more than my law students were, so I won't do that. Instead, I'm just going to give you a couple of brief definitions, and then when we actually look at one, hopefully it'll make sense to you. Let me say, however, that these were originally published by a publisher that no longer exists, called Lawyers Cooperative, and they now belong to West Publishing. Each volume of American Law Reports includes a number of in-depth articles that historically were called annotations. I've noticed that the most recent revision of the Uniform System of Citation refers to them as articles, but I'm going to call them annotations. Each annotation addresses a very specific, narrow legal issue. Each annotation provides a multi-jurisdictional survey of case law on the issue. So whatever the issue is, the annotation will discuss and cite to cases from all the states or all the federal courts, whatever is the appropriate issue, from around the country. And so if you are lucky enough to find an annotation on your specific issue, then you have got a big head start in your research, because the main thing you will need to do is update it since the annotation and whatever updates they've made to it were published. So if the last update was a year ago, you would need to find out what's happened in the last year on that issue. Now let me take a moment to emphasize what American Law Reports is not. It's not a law review. We will be talking about law reviews later, and they are professional journals primarily published by law schools, but there are a lot of law journals that are not published by law schools. However, American Law Reports has more to do with the reporting of case law, and here's where the 10-minute history talk would help you explain that to you. But that's why it's called American Law Reports. So why use American Law Reports? Well, I've kind of already told you that. It's a great way to start, especially when what you're looking for is case law. Someone else has already done the work. And if you can find an annotation on the issue that you're interested in, all you need to do is update it. So how is American Law Reports organized? Well, I've already mentioned that it was originally published by Lawyers Co-op and now it's published by West. This only matters because before it was published by West, you would not have found much in the way of cross-references to West resources. So if you're looking at a very early series, you won't find those cross-references. But if you're looking in one that's been published since the book became owned by West, it will have cross-references to many of the very useful West resources. It's published in a set of series. So there's the original ALR, then there's ALR second, ALR third, ALR fourth, and so forth. I believe the current series is 7th, but I suspect that 8th will be coming along any minute. There's a separate title called American Law Reports Federal that I believe they started in the 1970s, because I think it came out first when I was in law school. And it's now on the 3rd series, so it's ALR Federal 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Each series has around 100 volumes. I know the first series has 175. I believe it's the 4th series has 90, but the others are all in the vicinity of 100 or 125. Each volume contains any number of annotations. Some annotations are very short, some annotations are very, very long. So you could have anywhere from 4 to 10 annotations in a volume. Here are some sample titles from regular ALR. I just picked one volume off the shelf and they're fairly representative. And then here are some sample titles of annotations from an issue of the ALR Federal. Here's what the ALR looks like on the shelf. Not every set looks exactly the same. The older ones have a slightly different look. And here's what the individual volumes look like, ALR on the left and ALR Fed on the right. Now each individual volume is updated with a pocket part. So you would just turn to the back and look up the page number of the annotation and see if anything has been added to that particular annotation. That's how the more recent volumes have been updated. The older sets have some additional ways they were updated, but I don't think we really need to go into that. Now, this is not a blue booking or citation class, but I do want you to know what the citations to ALRs look like so you'll recognize them if you see them. The current citation format is the author, then the word annotation, then the title, then the volume, the series, and then you'll see they've stuck in there Article 1. Instead of a page number, they tell you it's the first article in that volume or the second article in that volume and so forth. I don't know why they've made that change. It may have something to do with online publishing. The more recent, or not the current, but the recent method, it showed a page number instead of the article number. And then down at the very bottom, just in case, if you see a citation that looks like this, you'll notice there's no author name. That's because back in the very, very old days, they did not tell you the name of the author of the individual annotation, and you just wrote the word annotation. So you just left the author's name off at the beginning. So if you see one of these sites, you'll know you're looking at a site to an annotation. You'll see it provides you with the volume number and which series, and then either the page number the annotation begins on or which article in that volume it is, first, second, third, and so forth. So now it's time to look at the different ways to find annotations on point. And of course, we're going to look at the 3 ways that you would use in print. So if you're using a West publication, like a West annotated code or a West secondary source, you might find references in that source to annotations. Here, for example, are some research references following a section of the California Annotated Code. And you see it lists 5 different annotations that might be relevant to your issue. You can do a table of contents approach by using the West ALR Digest. Unfortunately, we don't have it here in print anymore. But if you're in some other library, they may have it. It's very easy to use the ALR Digest. It is based on the West key number system. So if you know the topic name and key number, you can use the ALR Digest to find any annotations on that point of law. Here, for example, if your topic is alternative dispute resolutions and your key number is 178, you can turn to that topic and that key number, and here you'll see there's one annotation listed under that key number. You can also use the index approach by using either the ALR index or the more condensed ALR quick index. We no longer have the large set of the ALR index, but we did keep the most recent copy of the ALR quick index that we have. Obviously, it's not as detailed as the large set, but it'll usually do the job. Now let's suppose you're looking for an annotation about a client who was a guest in a hotel, and the hotel was not locked up as well as it should have been, or someone snuck past the front desk and came into the hotel and attacked your client in the hotel, and they were injured. What is the hotel's liability for that third person getting into the property and injuring a guest? Well, if you go to the index, and let's say you look up hotel and motel, then under hotel and motel, you look up guests, and the very first annotation under that is on point: assault, liability of hotel operator for injury to guests resulting from third person. Now let's look at a sample annotation. This is the one about hotel liability. You can see it starts with a kind of summary, and what it's summarizing basically is the case that it's based on. Every annotation comes from the fact that there was a case of interest, and they tell you the name and citation of that case here in the summary. But now notice at the bottom, it tells you that you can read that case in the back of this volume of the ALR. You could also go look at it in the reporter, but they publish the entire case in the back of the volume. In the old days, they used to publish the case followed by the annotation, followed by case, followed by an annotation, followed by case, followed by an annotation, and so forth. But at some point, I'm guessing around the time West bought the product, they started publishing them in the back as a group rather than one by one. And also, now that West owns the product, the cases that they publish in the back include the headnotes with the topics and key numbers. So you don't even have to go to Reporter to get the topics and key numbers in a case. Now, on the second page is a table of contents, and this is showing you that after the article outline, there will be research references, an index, and table of cases, laws, and rules. Now, the article outline, I think, will show you why ALR annotations can be so helpful. First of all, they've organized into two different categories of liability, one based on ineffective technology or mechanical security measures, and the other based on inadequate or ineffective security personnel. So let's say, for example, your client was injured by a third party because the lock on his room door was defective. And so he thought the door was locked. Turned out it wasn't, and someone just came right into his room. If you look, you'll see that under A, section 4 is where the annotation discusses room keys or locks, cases where liability was established. And section 5, room keys or locks, where there were cases discussed where liability was not established. If you can see how helpful this could be, you can see cases on both sides of an issue. The next two sections have to do with closed circuit television, and then in part B it has to do with the competence of the security personnel. Now the research references start on the next page, and there's really only one really important part here, and that's the first thing, West's Key Number Digest. This is giving you the topics and key numbers that it believes are most relevant, and you can save yourself a lot of time trying to find the right topics and key numbers. So it's telling you to look at topic action, key number 3, topic innkeepers, key numbers 10, 10.1, 10.2, and 10.9, and negligence topic, key numbers 10, 19, and 1070. The Westlaw databases part, I'm not sure how important that is for you to look at now, because in the old days you had to actually identify the database you wanted to search, not so much anymore. It also gives you reference to primary authority, but here that's federal law, so I would have to look it up to see how it's relevant. And then it gives you a list of related ALR annotations. Now this list actually continues on for another entire page, and I'm going to skip that and go to the next page. Now on this page we have some more cross-references, first to legal encyclopedias. And if you've been watching these videos in order, you'll recognize American Jurisprudence Second and CJS for Corpus Juris Secundum. So this is providing you with references to sections in those two legal encyclopedias. Next we have some trial strategy references, and 4 out of the 5 of these refer you to a book called Proof of Facts, which there will be a video on. The 5th one is to a book called Trials. We don't have that here in the library, but you would be able to access it from Westlaw. The next part is an index. Now this is an internal index. It indexes only things that are in the annotation, not in the entire volume. So let's suppose, for example, your client was injured because someone came to his door pretending to be a bellboy and they let him in. Well, if you look up bellboy, you can see there's actually a case like that discussed in section 8. Or suppose you were interested, your client was injured in an elevator, was assaulted by a third party in an elevator. Here you see that there are actually cases like that. Next is the table of cases, laws, and rules. If you're looking for cases, say from Alabama, you look here and you see there are two discussed in the annotation, one discussed in section 13 and one discussed in section 14. If your state that you're looking up is not on the list, then it will not be discussed in this annotation. Here's another page from the table, and you can see there is one case from California. It's discussed in section 13. Or maybe you're looking for Florida cases. You can see a whole bunch of cases cited. They even cite a Florida statute. This is the first page of the annotation, and you might want to check the footnotes to see any special exceptions. But let's jump ahead to section 13, where the only California case is cited. Here you see the facts of that case and some analysis of what the court ruled in that case.